This is Hawkissimo, and in this video I'm going to cover the topic of basic warrior builds. Of course, in this appropriate sections I have individual god guides, and I have them also clustered by the category that they belong to: warriors, assassins, mages, hunters, and guardians. But I also wanted to put together a fairly generic video to cover the generalized version of a warrior and take a moment to talk about their role. So, in Conquest, the role of the warrior is to really engage the back line. They often have jumps or other means to just penetrate deep into the back line and target the enemy mages and the enemy hunters who are trying to use their ranged abilities, and the warriors just jumping up into their face, swinging their crazy melee hand-to-hand attacks and using their abilities to disrupt everything. Meanwhile, the guardian is trying to provide peel and protection to those folks. So you have those dueling sides. So that's the mindset of the warrior and the object of the warrior. In casuals, it's a little bit more casual, but I think the meta or the thought process is still valid, right? Who am I targeting? Who am I going to be best against? Stands. So let's talk about the item builder. And again, this is not a build for Chalk, although if you watch my Chalk video, he's one of my most played gods, so I put very, very many different variations on a Chalk build there. This is a generic warrior build. Warriors in Conquest typically have boots and 4 or 5 defensive items, and simply rely on their abilities and their attacks to do the damage, and they're the tanks. They've got to sustain through that burst of damage that's going to happen immediately when they jump into the back line and are fighting technically 3 folks, right? A mage, a hunter, and a guardian are all trying to stop that nonsense. So they've got to be tanky. That said, in casuals, you won't see that as much, and we'll cover the thought process. So a good generic version is still going to start with a starter item. You have a couple different choices. If you're an ability-based warrior, going Bluestone Pendant is solid to get out a bit of extra damage. Nothing wrong with that. If you're a auto attack based warrior, there is Death's Toll to give you some sustain off pounding on minions. There's good old defense. Defense wins, right? And this item, by the way, happens to be a great counter to anybody using Bluestone Pendant, right? Bluestone Pendant's going to hit you for 30 damage over 2 seconds, so 2 ticks of 15. Well, this says it's reducing all damage taken by 4, so you're knocking that down to 11, and that's before your physical protection further reduces it, and you also got the increase in health. So a couple different ways to get around that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Lonzos or War Flag. I don't think they're the strongest. I don't see warriors doing this enough, but really, Watcher's Gift is solid. I mean, it's health, it's protection, it's MP5, it's bonus health and mana and gold whenever minions and jungle camps are getting cleared by other people. Nothing wrong with that. So any one of those is fine. I'm just going to take a generic one, and so as not to bias you one way or the other, I'll just start there. We would go into boots, utility boots. In almost every case, you want Warrior Tabby. Hint, it's named Warrior. It is one of the sole sources for your physical power, because again, we get on an emphasis of having items that have defense. This gives you some physical power to add to your abilities. Nothing wrong with going ahead with Reinforced Greaves. Very few should go into Ninja Tabby. Very few warriors are auto attack based. When in doubt, go ahead and just start here. It's in the name. Won't do you wrong. Of course, we pick up consumables. Chalice of Healing, great buy in the casual modes that my videos are intended for: Clash, Joust, Arena, and Conquest, because you return to Fountain much more than you do in Conquest. I meant Siege as the 4th. You return to Fountain much more than in Conquest. Ward. I know that people don't ward enough in casuals, but if you ever hope to play at the better levels, you need to develop the habits. Believe me, you make $50 very quickly in these casual modes, whereas money is harder to come by in Conquest. But watch any pro stream, even in that money strap environment of Conquest, they ward like crazy. So $50 to spot enemy rotation, catch where somebody's off by themselves or trying to port back so that you guys can kill them, definitely worth. And the reverse, knowing that they're coming to gank you or your teammates and they don't get that kill, so they don't go up a level, so that when you have to face them, your stupid idiot Loki died, and well, why should I care about him? Well, because if he dies, he's feeding the enemy, and that makes that enemy tougher for you to deal with later. So save that retard, get a ward. All right, on to the core. So similar to my Guardian generic guide, you generally should start with physical protection. Physical protection covers 3 of the 5 classes of gods, plus the creeps, the towers. Lots of different stuff is doing physical protection, physical damage. So having physical protection is good. The choices that you have here on a generic version tend to be Breastplate of Valor, or, so we'll go ahead and put that, or, and I'm just skipping down one so you can see the other. In the physical tree, in Conquest, you'll see this, but that's more of a 1v1 meta where you don't have a mix of people and you're trying to deal with waves. I would err on the side of Breastplate of Valor, get the higher amount of protection, but I didn't want to ignore that. I certainly think that there's nothing at all wrong with taking Sovereignty. It is still a lot of physical protection and its health. Oh yeah, and by the way, it gives you hit point regen. Oh yeah, and it happens to give your allies physical protection and hit point regeneration, and that means that those guys aren't feeding. Well, that's kind of nice. So this is also very worth. I happen to run this a lot, but I run a lot of my warriors as I would a Guardian. I simply wanted to throw that out as an option. You should also eventually mix some magical protection and health. So this is a good magic protection item if you want some more cooldown. This if you want a little less protection but are willing to take some attack speed and crowd control reduction. If you just want to be an uber tank, go ahead and go into Pestilence. Best all around magic protection item in, because it has the highest magical protection out of all the magical protection items, and it comes with 200 health. The fact that its aura happens to reduce enemy healings is just icing. Keep in mind that that's not only healing via ability, not only through consumables, not only through relics, but it also includes lifesteal. So certainly nothing wrong with that. At that point, I tend to like to go into health. Health and protections have a lot of synergy, and I like going into Stone of Gaia or Gauntlet of Thebes. Are both very safe choices. Thebes is nice because it's helping your allies, but if you already have a Guardian on your team, if he has or she has half a brain, they should already be running Gauntlet of Thebes and they don't stack. So feel free to go ahead and go into Stone of Gaia. Nothing wrong with that. At that point, you're pretty tanky. And in casual modes, if you then want to splash in 2, can I at least have 2 offensive items? Yeah, sure. Okay, no problem. So let's talk about which items would be good for that. Let's skip right on down here and talk some good items. And why am I coming down here? Because you can get offensive items that have health on them. Frostbound Hammer is nice because when you hit your enemies, you're suddenly adding a move slow of 30% and you're reducing their attack speed, both very nice. The fact that it gives you a little bit of power and gives you more health, which stacks with your defenses, is nice. Believe me, I've been the squishy that's getting pounded by a warrior just swinging that Frostbound Hammer, and it is sad. If your team has a lot of CC, you have a Guardian with a lot of CC like Kubra Karne, CC stands for crowd control. Runeforge Hammer would be there. You probably have 1 CC effect. For instance, Chalk self-heal puts down the slow effect. That's crowd control. This would give you the spike in damage. But no, it has less health and it has that situation. So either one of these is fine. I'm just going to go ahead and take the classic one. And two other good choices are Masamune, 50 power, 100 health, 10% move speed, and you're going to get 7 protection for every enemy god around you. Up to the 5 gods would give you 35 physical, 35 magical. So that has a lot of synergy. Or you can go ahead, if there's a heavy physical comp on the opposite side, go ahead and take Stone Cutting Sword. I like the idea of mixing move speed with power. The passive is nifty because every time you hit them with your basic attack, not your ability, but your basic attack, you are decreasing their physical protections by 10 and increasing your physical protections by 10, and you can stack that up to 3 times. So reducing it by 30 for them, increasing yours by 30. And that's nice because that means that the assassins and hunters on your team are also getting the benefit of having their protections lowered. So either one of these, depending on enemy team comp and what you want, those are 2 great all-around solid choices. Relics, let's talk relics. I think the safest 2 relics in the game are purification beads. There's always some annoying crowd control effect that you just want to pretend never got cast on you, and this just washes it away and makes you immune for 2 seconds in its unupgraded version. And then if you spend 500 more gold, you see we knock down the cooldown. So I think that that's always a solid choice. In the early game, it's not generally damage that does you in. It's the crowd control followed by the damage. If you weren't under the crowd control, you could simply step out of the damage. But later on, they've built up more power. Now suddenly that damage can hit for ridiculous amounts. That's when this item comes in. In its unupgraded version, you see that it's 2 seconds of immunity with 160 cooldown. In the upgraded version, you see that we knocked 30 seconds of cooldown off. So I think that those are always safe choices to take in every mode for every character. However, let's talk about some warrior-specific stuff. Well, Bracer of Undoing is nice because it's not only protection against some of that burst damage, but it's also, giving you some mana restored. And it's knocking down your cooldown, so very solid. I thought it was good before they buffed it, and now they buffed it, so it's even better. Come on now. Heavenly Wings, always solid. There are times where you simply need to chase somebody down or stop from being chased down, either you or your ally, both for the chasee and the chaser. So I think that that's solid. Hey, you're already tanky. Having meditation isn't horrible. Yeah, it's been nerfed, but the fact that it's mana as well, don't forget about that. I don't know about you, but when I'm a warrior and I'm tanky as heck and I'm just out there all day because I don't need to return because I'm regenerating my health and whatnot, my problem is I ran out of mana. Darn it. Now I got to go back for mana? Blah. Well, Meditation Cloak would give you the 30% back, so that's one way to go. I also really like Shield of Thorns. Nothing more depressing to an enemy than finally starting to get you low on health, and then you pop Shield of Thorns, and then you start your heal effects, and you're reflecting all that damage back, and they're like, no, why make it end? So I think all of those become solid choices. All right, with that, I'm going to end the generic warrior build. I gave you a little bit of the mindset, who you should be targeting, how you should operate, how you should be thinking about how to use your skills, and what your purpose is. If you found any of the information here useful, please go ahead and click the like button. I would greatly appreciate that. If you haven't already subscribed, I heartily welcome you to do so. Clicking the bell is very helpful for content creators like myself, and it notifies you whenever I post new content, so that's useful for you. Finally, if you have comments, questions, fill out the section below, and I'll do my best to respond. I'm generally responding within a day or so. I'm also taking requests, so you'll see the requested section, and go ahead and fill in some comments there and request content, and I'll start to fill in topics that you folks want. Thank you very much. This is Hawkissimo signing out.